A photographer took a picture, before and after, giving this woman a sword. I'm okay with the lack of context, but at the same time, I desperately want the context. Those are her victims in the background. Her health bar is enormous. Nudes are so 2017. Send me a photo of yourself in a full plate of armor, wielding battle-ready weapons. Baby, sword for scale. A diver finds 900-year-old crusader sword. Congrats to him for completing whatever main quest he was on. My sister went on a date, and instead of flowers, the dude brought her a sword. Pose with your sword, the way guys on Tinder pose with their fish. Okay, but what did you do to that Kobe? We are testing an electrified samurai sword. We don't actually know what's going to happen. I would never do this. A sword that screams whenever you swing it, and the volume is directly tied with how fast it's swung. Finally, a good post. Great for Vikings, not great for ninjas. I just found out that the Korean Baseball League's championship trophy is a giant sword. Every other sports league on the planet needs to get their shit together. I just wanted a 6-inch cold cut combo on Italian, and this guy brought out his bankai. European swords are the best. No, the katana is the best. Spears, yes. Live by the sword, drive by the sword. Met a homeless guy, gave him a meal and a place to stay. In return, he gave me a fucking sword. Good responses to getting stabbed with a sword. Rude. That's fair. Not again. Are you going to want this back, or can I keep it? Sword fight after man robs shop with sword, but shopkeeper pulls out a huge scimitar. Ancient sword of Meth King, seized by Michigan police. I must retrieve the sword of the Meth King. Fellas, who's down for a quest? Hey, how many swords do you have? Sword of a lot. Blocked. Parried. So, baby swordfish are born with a tiny sword. Have a good day. Live by the sword. Try by the sword. This sword was found during the search of a vehicle earlier today. Thankfully, it's been taken off of the streets. You are doing God's work, mate. Lost an ancestor to a sword, just like that, in the 13th century. The tiny sword is stored in the sword ring for tiny duels. Have any of you ever seen the Air Force's honorary sword? Chameleons are fun, because they will grab anything you give them. Guys in the UK cannot carry guns, so they walk around with swords in their pockets. Our friend's house key is shaped like a sword. Everybody wants to live in a police-free world until a bare-ass naked guy with a samurai sword and a huge peepee starts chasing you down the street. Hunter finds 2100-year-old Viking sword. Chill, bro. No one's going to take it from you. You don't come between a Danish man and his princess sword, let me tell you. A thief steals St. Michael's statue from church, trips, and is injured by the angel's sword. Whoa, is this your room? Amazing. I love swords. Please get out of my head. I know you are not real. Michigan man stabbed with a samurai sword after not buying drugs for boyfriend. Swords invented during 1600 BC. People before. Stop your work and notice me. Amazing craftsmanship. Portland driver threatened with sword calmly walks to trunk and gets rifle. Man arrested for claiming to have a thought slang license while carrying a 4-foot long sword. All night long, the sword on the wall above my bed has been rattling, and I finally woke up all the way and went what the hell and turned on the light and found this. The funniest weapon to get stabbed by. Antique Victorian perfume bottle in the shape of a sword. Colonial kings. They dumped my tea. Take their guns. Medieval kings. Personal protection is important. Find those not carrying a sword or other weapons. This katana, made from 4 billion-year-old meteorite. It's called the Sword of Heaven. I would love to play with your sword. So sorry, that was my friend. Well then, excuse me, but I think your friend and I were talking. Florida man attacks mum's boyfriend with a samurai sword over missing can of shrimp. This casually resting my limp wrist against the hilt of my sword pose is so flirty. I found my gender. Yo, are you the sword guy? Yeah, can you send me a pic? Me, absolutely twisted, coming home with a load of swords. Me, waking up on the next day with a room full of swords. Buy your girlfriend a sword. She deserves it. Can we normalize proposing marriage with a sword instead of an unethically sourced diamond? Every culture invents the sword, fried dough, and fermentation. There's a basic human need to stab someone and then have beer and donuts. I just really think we should normalize sword gifting as a romantic gesture again. Can you imagine having someone go to the finest blacksmith they find to completely customize you a blade, showing their undying love and respect for you? In case you writers ever wondered, the object comparisons are a thing of an equivalent weight, not things you can just cut with the swords. Just saying, so to preemptively stop the cursed comments, do not sheath me without reason. Do not wield me without valor. Sir, this is the 21st century. You cannot go to war with armor and a sword. My honest reaction. That thing was too big to be called a sword. Too big, too thick, too heavy, and too rough. It was more like a large chunk of iron. Man requests sword fight with ex-wife and lawyer to settle legal dispute. Love this radioactive lime green gamer juice fuckery. You all make fun of horse girls and sword guys like like they couldn't just get married and give birth to a generation of fully armed cavalry. Amusing to watch my wife get upset over my $54 samurai sword when she had no problem spending $75 on groceries. Chainsaw sword. What the fuck? Ah, the tri-dagger. You need like 2 teams of surgeons to close those wounds, and you even have the chance to not bleed to death. An executioner sword with the inscription, "When I raise this sword, so I wish that this poor sinner will receive eternal life." Dad, I found a sword. An 8-year-old was nicknamed Queen of Sweden after pulling a stick from a lake that turned out to be a pre-Viking era sword about 1500 years old. A true warrior queen has risen, chosen. A 2-handed sword that belonged to a prince. This is a sick sword. A man stabbed with Legend of Zelda Master Sword in serious condition. That's how I want to go. Okay, but if you read the article, he wasn't stabbed. He literally walked into the blade thinking it was a toy, and not that it was a replica actual sword. He literally just walked into my sword, officer. Her reaction is just so precious. She goes from a fearsome warrior to a kawaii— What? That's so metal. I said, open the goddamn cheesecake factory. Seduce me with obscure knowledge of history. Nintendo and the Ottoman Empire existed during the same time. What do you guys think of my new sword? I think it's great. Huzzah, huzzah, huzzah. Have at thee. Charge. Medieval wars in reality. We are just going to sit in here for 2 years, and we'll sit out here for 2 years. Huzzah. Read the room, Jerry. While you studied the blade, I studied the blade too. We were classmates. Hey bro, is there any blade homework due tomorrow? Get the reddest red lipstick by using this handy tool to harvest the blood of your enemies. A 5,000-year-old crystal dagger uncovered in a tomb. Why are we touching it? A sword-wielding medieval knight, vigilante, takes on a street gang. A dagger full of flowers. If someone gifted me a flower dagger, I think I would love them till the end of time. I scared the repairman. I'm not sure if it was my collection of shitty katanas and knives, or when he had to move this decorative Eiffel Tower and realized it's a knife. Okay, that's really cool. Guys, it's an Eiffel Tower. A teen forges a knife from 4.5 billion-year-old meteorite, complete with opal, gold, and an ancient woolly mammoth tooth, making Egyptian Kupesh sword. That looks fucking sick. The beauty of Sylvie swords. Also, the runes. Anime character. Doesn't know how to swing a sword properly. The character after 2 months of training. Me, joining my sibling's sword stick fight using a piece of log I just found. Bruh, I swear these characters carry the heaviest swords I've ever seen. Woman dies trying to catch a sword with her— Yeah, it's her I can't even read this. I showed you my sword. Answer me. This was my dad's sword, now mine. He made it when he was knighted. It is called Thunderbolt. I carried it ahead of his coffin at his funeral. Rest in peace. The girl who travels alone with her magic ghost sword probably has an interesting life story. Y'all out here buying new guns and stuff. I got a new sword. I doubt anyone cares, but I just finished making my first sword. A Chinese bronze sword with turquoise studded gold inlaid rock crystal hilt. Now that is a magical sword, because if you have to kill somebody, you better do it fabulously. Stabulous. To make a sword out of the blood of your enemies, you will have to kill 359 people to get enough iron from their blood to make a long sword. Open carry laws in Texas for knives and swords begin in September. Run of thy fade. Behold, a sword. Hilt, yes. Guard, yes. Used for cutting, yes. Infinitely long blade, yes. Sword girlfriend, like a regular girlfriend, but with a sword. Sword girlfriend's got nothing on knife wife. Now this is a post when you can only pay for one college tuition. At a university in Finland, doctoral candidates get a top hat and a sword when they graduate. Fucked around and copped a medieval weapon. Blacksmith, I'm almost done with this sword. I just have to work out the kinks. I like feet. Shut up. Today I learned Viking used the bone of slain animals when smithing new weapons, believing this would enchant the weapon with the animal's spirit. This actually made the weapon stronger because the carbon in the bones, coupled with the iron, made a primitive version of steel. Fuck off, egghead. It's because of bone magic. The Gojian has been described as the Chinese version of the Excalibur. It was discovered in a tomb and was deemed to be more than 2,000 years old. Despite its age, the blade contained no rust and was sharp enough to draw blood when its edge was tested. Is this guy receiving the sword, or is this guy receiving the sword? The two are boyfriends who live together, and they just got the sword they ordered online, and the smaller guy unpacked it, and the big guy is like, this is going to look great on the wall over the TV. The sword breaker was a dagger that had slot cuts along one side. These slots allowed for it to be used to capture an enemy's sword. When the enemy swung their sword, the sword breaker would catch it in one of the slots, then a quick twist of the wrist could break the sword blade. The sword or cutlass is completely encrusted with what used to be marine life. It has been x-rayed, and yes, the sword is there. It comes from a 1700s Dutch shipwreck found off of the East Indies. Be me, Texan, law passing allowed sword carrying, carry broadsword. I get challenged to a duel with some scrawny white weeb with a katana. I call his sword trash and a waste of one sheet of metal. He jutsus, and I just stare, fucking break his katana in two, and run my blade through his neck. Most real 4chan story. This is just a reminder that when Sir Terry Pratchett was knighted, he dug up his own iron ore, learned to smelt, smelted it, added meteorite iron, learned to forge, and forged himself a star metal sword, as you do. And then he put it away somewhere safe so he wouldn't violate any UK knife laws. If I ever run a post-apocalyptic campaign, Sir Terry Pratchett's star metal sword would definitely be a legendary item for players to retrieve. Replace the engagement ring with an engagement sword. Fun fact, the Vikings literally exchanged swords at weddings. The man was supposed to break into his father's/grandfather's crypt, steal his sword, and give it to his wife when they got married. The woman gave her husband a brand new sword, and the woman was apparently supposed to hang on to this ancient sword and make sure that it was buried with her husband when he died. So yeah, engagement swords, or at least wedding swords, should definitely be a thing. The legendary sword in the stone, often linked to the King Arthur legend, really does exist in a chapel in Italy. While considered fake for years, recent studies show that the metal and the style of the sword are consistent with the late 1100s and early 1200s. In the chapel, you can see what are said to be the mummified hands of a thief that tried to remove the sword. A ninja with a sword assailed a US Army Special Operations unit in California. "Do you know who I am?" the man asked. The sergeant said he did not. "Do you know where my family is?" the man asked. When the sergeant said he did not know, the person in the ninja garb began to slash at him with a katana sword. The report states, adding that to the sergeant's leg and phone was struck. Project rounds were used, but were ineffective. The blotter says a 911 call came from someone at the airport, saying 26 Special Operations military members were hunked down in a hangar, wondering where help is. Who is this guy? Sword for sale. Warning, might be haunted. This sword is from the 1700s. I got it in an antique store in my mom's hometown back in 1984. The person who sold it to me told me to be careful because there is a 90+% chance that it is cursed. Ever since it's been in my house, my life has descended into pure chaos. My knitting group came over and they have all said they could feel a strange energy in my sword room. I have a collection over 100 swords. This is my only haunted sword. Since I got this sword about 3 times a week, a crucifix will fall off my wall for no reason. I am 76 years old. I cannot have this cursed item in my house anymore. Please take it off my hands. The end of Australia. I have used this meme a lot of times, so I'm not going to read it. And I haven't eaten yet. I need to eat.